Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff. Occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Wallen. With me today, I have Filipe Pampuri from Beetronics. Long overdue. So stoked to have you on here. You've got a crazy release, but really, we need to get to that. But
Yes.
I've been admiring you guys for so long. Ever since you guys dropped on the scene, you had like this crazy aesthetic that nobody else was even touching. You were running around in bee costumes at NAMM. Like, you're doing all this crazy stuff and doing it in a fun way. So I want to get the Beetronics story. I want to get your story. I know you do a lot of recording. You've got a lot of Latin Grammy winners that have come through the studio. Like, you do all kinds of crazy stuff. What's your story, dude? When did you get started in all this?
Dude, at first, thank you for having me. Super cool. I mean, we probably spoke about this a long, long time ago until it actually happened. So that's awesome. Uh, Dude, I guess I'll start on my story on music and how, I got into guitar and all that. But yeah, my dad plays guitar, plays some piano, he's not like a musician for profession, but he was the teenager. That was probably his thing he wanted to do. He ended up following a different profession, but he always kept playing and always kept passionate about it. So I guess when we were born, he was always like very, oh cool, like they should play, and was always incentivizing us. Then I started playing keyboards. My brother started playing drums. My brother Danny started playing drums. And as we grew up, actually, I mean, I started playing keyboards, and then Danny was playing drums, and then pretty quick, maybe in a year or less, I was like, oh, this keyboard it's lame, like you gotta play guitar now, you gotta hit some things, like play some rock and roll. And then we pretty quick started like playing together, and I started grabbing the guitar, trying some stuff. And since my dad played guitar, my dad started teaching me. Uh, and that's how I got into guitar as a teenager, and I started studying, going to music schools and all of that. And then from the beginning, me and my brother were always very passionate about recording.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the guys who was in our band, Luis, we ended up kind of getting together, and we were like, oh, let's build a studio. And we started building a studio at his house, and then the studio moved into my house. We convinced my mom to move out of her room because the room she was in was the only room we could actually build a wall. And this maybe like 13, 14, and then
Oh,
he's
wow.
like 2 years older. But we were already like taking things pretty seriously, like, recording and stuff. We probably recorded our first album that we did on a CD. I was probably 13 or 14. And we were always like, trying to learn about studio back then, starting with like V amps, because it was
Mm-hmm.
how you could get it in Brazil, like as far as guitar tones. I mean, it was a while until V amp came through. And I mean, we wanted to have like pods, but those were expensive in Brazil back then. So
Right,
the
right.
version and recording, we actually, I mean, we had a neighbor, which is part of what got us into recording as well. Our neighbor Casio, like his dad had a recording studio, and Casio was pretty crazy with like, we would just go in and break into, like, he would steal the key of his dad's studio, and we would break in times when his dad was not there, and we would go in and try to record. And there's some funny stories where like we came in and we turned on everything, and then turned on all the ADATs. It was all ADATs back then.
Mm-hmm.
And we just recorded a blank space in the middle of this record he was doing.
Oh, no. Oh.
And it's like no way back, right? So, and later, like his dad was super pissed. His dad found out years later, recently, that it was us that we did, but we, always very passionate about studio. I think also my neighbor having a real studio like back then was part of what got us very like, oh wow, like a studio. We would get in, it was a real studio, and a lot of musicians from the Brazilian scene would record there. That's in São Paulo. in Brazil. And yeah, then me and Danny always into studios. Later down the line, I came to the US as an exchange student, which was the first time that I actually came here. I was an exchange student in upstate New York. And by the time I came back, my brother and Louis had started the studio outside of my mom's house, because before we were recording at my mom's house, they actually had rented a place. And I immediately came back from high school straight into that place, and we started recording bands. And then I just did that for like a while, me and my brother and Luis, and we went evolving. We had some bigger studios later down the line, which we started recording a lot of the bands from the Brazilian like rock, like back then a lot of like hardcore, a lot of like emo stuff, whatever was happening back in the day. And we started recording and even releasing bands. We started like this little label and kind of started like releasing some stuff, and went growing kind of everything over there. And in that meantime, we did a record with this dude that was a singer who was really good. I mean, the story is long. Okay,
Yeah, no, I like it. No, the story should be long. I like it.
but we did this record with this guy who was a singer, Enrico, and he was very good singer. And the record was more like in a 90s vibe, like Stone Temple Pilots, Pearl Jam, kind of that grunge vibe, Soundgarden. And me, my brother, and a few friends, we did produce and write the whole record with him. And he had some money at the time, and he was like, dude, I want to go mix this in the US. Like, can you guys help me out? And we tried to figure out a way to bring to someone. And then we started reaching out through email, and the internet was somewhat quite different back then, as far as communication speed of people being, so it would be like, all right, search on the website of this dude, his email, sent an email and hope for the best. There was no Instagram
Mm-hmm.
to try to reach or nothing like that. So we just reached out to a few dudes that were like, all right, these guys would be, goals. And one of the guys who we really wanted to do was Jay Baumgardner, who owns NRG Recording. Jay,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, he had, I think one of the albums back then that we really were really stoked about it was like he had done Seven Dust. I think it's called Four Seasons, maybe the record, or something like Seasons, the record. Yeah. And he had done Seasons by Seven Dust. And we were like, oh, dude, like this record sounds sick. It would be cool to mix with that dude. And his manager responded back then saying, hey, Jay loves the stuff that you guys sent, and we can figure something out, and he would love to do it. So we came to Los Angeles to do that record, to mix the record, and we had like a month and a half trip where we were coming to NRG. He was supposed to mix the record in 10 days, which was 1 day per song, which was what the budget could do. And then we were going to go to Sterling Sound in New York to master the record. So we came to LA, and then after like the 10 days, Jay kind of finished the record, and he was like, oh, dude, I'm not really happy with this. And we started becoming friends throughout that week, those 10 days. He's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I'm not super happy with it. I'm much better now at this last mix. So I'm going to restart, and we're going to start again and start again. And we're like, dude, we ain't got no more money, like this is it. Like, if you want to do it, he's like, no, I want to do it. Like, I'll just do it again. So the whole process of mixing ended up becoming a whole month. And we stayed at
Wow.
NRG, which was already a dream for us. Like, as me and my brother walked into NRG, for example, like there is Studio B in NRG, which is like a legendary place. And Studio B has all this like fabrics in the ceiling, and it's like looks all Moroccan. And years before, I had seen that studio, and I didn't know that was that studio, in a magazine. And whenever we went to build my room in one of the studios that we later built in Brazil, I did the studio with all the fabrics on the ceiling. So we get to NRG, and I had no clue that they had that thing, right? That was the studio. As we walk in, I looked at Danny, my brother, I was like, wow, like this is the place, like this.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, like this is so sick. So it was our dream to ever record there, like an album, but just mixing was already like, wow, this is cool. So turned out that we spent a month mixing the record. We go to New York and go to Sterling Sound to master, which was also like a dream come true for us. Like, and for us, we were back then kind of really interested in the process of working on some very like high end mainstream like places. And we went to Sterling Sounds, mastered the album, and stayed in New York maybe for like a week. And then at the end of the trip, me and my brother looked at each other. We're like, oh, we don't really want to come back, right? Like, and we're like, yeah. So, and Jay seemed that was very interested in the band, like throughout the process. And we're like, Jay, seemed like he was interested in helping us out to do more stuff. So why don't we just like go back to LA? Like let the guys go back to Brazil and we go back to LA as both and we try to figure something out there, see if we get some deal or something. So we literally just ripped off our tickets. I had bought I had saved money before we came because guitars in Brazil are very expensive,
Hmm.
like very, very expensive. So I had saved some money and I had bought this 1972 maybe, like a wine red custom Les Paul.
Ooh.
I was gonna take back to Brazil, and one of my friends who was going back to Brazil decided. I mean, he was going back. Me and my brother decided that we were gonna go back to LA. I gave to him the guitar and I was like, "Hey, dude, can you take it for me? Cause I won't I don't have money and like eventually I'm gonna need to sell this guitar in Brazil if I need to stay here, and that's the way for me to to have some money and while I'm here." So he took the guitar back to Brazil and I went back to LA with no guitars, nothing happening, nothing at all actually. uh and we got to LA, back to LA. We knew this girl, Danny, who she had told us, "Hey, if you guys ever want to come back, stay at my place. You guys get a month there. Like I'll let you be there for a month." And she lived with her band and stuff. And so we called Danny. We're like, "Hey, Danny, we're coming back. Like, is it still up the offer for us to stay for a month?" She was like, "Yeah, yeah, stay here." So we came back, and then as we came back, the first time we met with Jay was like, "Hey guys, like I want to help. I want to sign your guys' band." He had before like a label on Sony and stuff, and I was like, "No, I want to get you guys band. I want to start managing you guys and stuff. I'm gonna give you back the money that you guys paid for the mix. I don't want the money, and we just start working together. Just let's get the guys back from Brazil to here." And then we started working with Jay on stuff, like, and started working on like new material because he was like, "Why don't we start recording like already an album here, with me and all of that?" And then the guys from the band later, maybe a month and a half or two later, they came back. Me and my brother had to figure out life in LA because we had no money, we had no, and we bought this like old Cadillac, like a 1982 Seville Cadillac, which was all we could buy off some dude in the street on Hollywood Boulevard, like a movie. You know, we bought off this like super sketchy dude. We bought this car, and I'm calling the only friend I had met in the meantime here who knew like how to buy a car. And I was like, "Hey, dude, this guy's telling me like he would just give me this paper and I sign and I walk out with the car. Is that true? Like, is this how it happened?" I had never bought a car here. Buying a car in Brazil is not like that. You don't buy a car off a guy in the street. If you do that, it's a stolen car for sure.
Hmm.
So we
Hmm.
were like, we bought this car, and for a while, this friend was taking us around because we left the girl's house, and this guy was like, Henrik was taking us around to his friend's house and kind of finding places for us to crash. Then a dude crashed into. I mean, this. I told you the story is long, right? This dude, like 1 week after we bought the Cadillac, we are right next to NRG, like at the cross street there of like Lancashire and Magnolia, and this dude on a big ass truck, like an F-250, whatever, hits us in the back like big time. Like me and my brother are stopped. This dude just come boom, smashes the car, and we're just like, wow. And my brother back then didn't speak any English, so my brother gets out the car yelling at the guy like in Portuguese, "Filha da puta," não sei, blah, 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 saying to this guy. I'm like, "Yo, then you chill out. Like, I'll go talk to the guy." So I went to talk to the guy because I was the only one in the band back then that really spoke English very fluently because I had lived here for a year.
Hmm.
uh, Everyone in the band was kind of like learning and figuring out how to talk. Uh, so I talked to the guy, and we had paid, I think, like $1,000 in the car, or like something like that, like $1,200 in the car. And the guy was like, hey dude, sorry. And the guy hit the our trunk, and in our trunk had our bag, and it was this like this fabric bag that had all of our clothes, right? Like all of our stuff.
Oh,
His car, the radiators exploded, so there was all this green water all over the clothes. And me and my brother are like, we're living kind of out of this car, and I'm telling the guy, hey dude, like, this is all my stuff, I just moved here, like, I'm figuring out where to stay, like, and we just had the car. Now we're, and then the guy was a stuntman from Universal Studios. So he was like, hey guys, like, do like this, like, this was maybe like a Monday or something. The guy was like, show up on Wednesday at the Universal Studios at the roundabout there on top of Universal Studios, and I'll write you guys a check. How much, like, did you guys pay for the car? And then I said some amount more than what we had paid, like 15 grand. And then the guy was like, all right, I'm cool. Like, I'll write you a check for that. And like, and we just go. And I was like, dude, okay. Like, and we were like in the hopes that the guy really does, whatever he said he was gonna do. And then we got a tow truck, took the car to this Cadillac spot, sold the car for $200 plus a ride back, because we didn't have a way to get back. And back then was only taxis, and taxis were like a fortune to go from like Sun Valley back to North Hollywood was gonna. And then with that money from the car, we got our first apartment, uh,
nice.
which we flatted off this chick. And then we had a place for like another month and a half or 2 months. And that was kind of how we started getting situated in the whole thing. So a long story short, we started working with Jay, and we started doing all this new record stuff. And Jay started helping us out to get gigs as well. So he would put me and my brother on some of his gigs. Like every record he would do, he would hire us to like write songs with the artists, or like co-produce with him and do all kinds of stuff like that. Uh, so we could raise some money, because the band was starting. We were like, and then we started getting on tours. We did a bunch of tours, like opening up for like bigger bands. Like they would get us on a lot of like active rock stuff. Like, so we were like opening for like Papa Roach and like P.O.D and like all this like new metal-ish kind of vibe stuff, which was
Hmm.
what Jay came from, right? Like Jay produced Infest by Papa Roach, and was a lot of his scene. The band was more grunge. Then we were doing like those, like how do you say, the Rockstar Energy festivals, like
Oh
Up
yeah.
Tour. So we did Uproar Tour and started doing all this tours, like opening for bigger bands. And we ended up staying with that band for about 7 years. The band started getting somewhat more popular in Brazil, so we started playing a lot in Brazil. We would play a lot of like decently big and sold out shows there, like played a bunch of festivals there as well, like all this kind of stuff. So we would be between Brazil and LA, and we would go in Brazil because everything we would do here would reverberate way bigger in Brazil, because we were like a Brazilian band doing some cool in America, so that was like a big deal back then. Uh, and we kept doing that for about like 7 years, I think, on the whole band thing. And in the meantime, I started getting into pedals, and the reason was because in the studio we had, like, in Brazil, studios were always an issue that gear would break. And in Brazil, it was not very accessible for you to be able to fix stuff. One, because there were not many guys who knew how to fix, so there was only a few dudes who would have repair shops. And then like parts, like if an amp would break and you needed a specific tube, or like if you needed like a certain value, capacitor or stuff, like it was not like there was stores where like, oh, just come in here and buy, or order off Amazon. There was no such thing. So back then, basically, if you were recording with something and that gear broke, that gear was out of the record until you
Hmm.
finish the record. And if you start using this amp, that's like, oh yeah, this is the best sounding amp, and the amp breaks, it's gone. Like figure out another amp or borrow one of the same or whatever, So this was always a challenge being in Brazil, was gear. And then whenever we got to NRG, they had a house tech, Wade, who would fix everything there. So, like, the Neve channel would break and he would repair right away. So, all the gear was always meant, always perfectly functioning. And whenever we got there and we saw that and we started working that way, we were just like, wow, like, this is so good. Like, if
Mm-hmm.
something breaks, we have the next day. Uh, so I discussed with my brother. I was like, maybe I should start learning some basics so we can kind of like fix our own. If we ever go back to Brazil and and we have a studio there, I know how to fix. Because we would obviously not be able to hire a tech that would be 24. It would never make sense that in Brazil that setup. Uh, so one way to get in was pedal kits. Like I started looking on forums and that kind of stuff, which was what was available at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
I started buying some pedal kits and build some pedals, and then I started learning about some circuits and modifying them and kind of building them the way I would like and finding how to do this or how to add a different second foot switch with a different setting or this or that, and started modding and making my own. And I've always been into building stuff. Like if you told me to, oh, let's build a table, I'd be like, yeah, let's build a table. I'm always that guy.
Mm-hmm.
So with pedals was not different, and my wife, she's an architect, so she knew about like CAD drawings and all that. So from way back then, I was like, why don't I make the boxes and we find like our own shape and start doing this kind of stuff? And I was doing all of that not with any intent of selling pedals. I mean, at the end of the story, I also never got into fixing no gear. I hate fixing gear. Like I'll never fix it. It will break and will stay broken. I'll fix pedals, our pedals, but well, it's not fun. And but building pedals was fun, and like having pedals was fun, like because also back then I didn't have much money to buy pedals, and this was like a way for me to have pedals I couldn't buy. I was like, all right, I can build something like this, and so I started making this whole thing with visuals. With like at one trip in Brazil, I hit up a friend who had this publicity agency and was good with logos and all of that, Lierson. And I'm like, yo, Lee, can I stop by so we make a logo for this pedal thing I'm doing? Like, but it was like, swear to God, like no intent of selling a single pedal. It was like, actually, I was very opposed to selling any pedal. Like, because the whole thing was like, no, like I'm going to tour and people are going to look at my pedal board and they're going to be like, how the this dude get all the sounds? And like, and I was going to be, this is my sounds and nobody have it. And you don't know
Mm.
what it is. You never know what it is. This was my ultimate goal. And then for a while I was doing that. I just had my pedals and the pedals were cool and I liked them, and that was it. And then at some point I was broke and needed money, and then my friend Greg Cash, who is a bass player, like session bass player from here, uh, we were at NRG and he was like, yo, like you should sell me a pedal. Like, let me buy this pedal. I think it was the very first Walk to Hell I had built, and I called Walk to Hell. I had like hand stamped them, and like it looked like a custom shop Beetronics already. I would hand paint them and do all that kind of crazy
Mm-hmm.
that we do at custom shop. But everything was custom shop, was just me kind of like building them as cool as I thought they could be. And Cash was like, yo, sell me and blah blah. And I needed money one day, and I was like, dude, how much? Like, and then I ended up selling to him. I don't remember, maybe $200 or something, but was a decent amount of money. And like a day later or 2 days later, he calls me. He's like, yo, this dude's in this band I'm playing with. They want to buy some. Would you sell them some? Like, would you make some more? And I was like, oh wow, like I should do this. I could pay my rent with this. Like because I really needed money.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, so I'll make a few. And I started making a few. And then those dudes got me some other dudes to buy more. And like pretty quick, in like maybe 2 or 3 months, I had some people always buying pedals. Every week I was selling one, two, three, and I was like, wow, like, I was raising like $500 here and there, which, was like enough money for me to not have to get into some gigs or like not having to do other things that I didn't want to do,
Mm-hmm.
and then at some point things were going already, kind of moving in a direction where I was like, maybe this should be a business. And I had some talks with my girl, and we are like, maybe we should do this, And then I spoke to my brother as well, and I was like, hey, let's put some money together and maybe we build a batch of like, 50 of them. And then we put up a website, see where it gets us. And then at some point, I had met the bass player for Rage Against the Machine, Tim Comerford, and
Mm-hmm.
I had built this one pedal for him, this one Walk the Hell. And I brought to an M show. This was like early in the year, probably January. I brought to an M show, and Matt Joe from Chase Bliss there, like, which I didn't know who Chase Bliss was. I came and met him over there, and I was like, oh, I make some pedals and blah, blah. And he was like, oh, yeah, do you have anything? I was like, yeah. And I pull out of my backpack this pedal. And he was like, immediately, like, just, oh, let's put it on the board. And he put it on a pedal board with a bunch of Chase Bliss. And me and him started nerding out on some sounds. And he was kind enough to actually post about it a few days after NAM and say, hey, I met this dude, and he made some really cool pedals and posted about the pedal. And then I started getting some people following me. That was kind of how the thing I started getting some people following, our stuff. And then at the end of that year, whenever I put money together to build 50 of them, we put it up the website and we sold quick, like maybe a week or two, and I was hoping like that was gonna sell in 6 months, like I was like, I would be happy if that sold in 6 months, but it's so quick. And we raised some money, and I looked at Denny. I had been to many NAM shows as a musician, because in the meantime as well, like we got like sponsored by ESP, and Jay got us because I had no guitars, and then Jay helped us get a sponsored by ESP, and I would go to NAM shows and get, at some point I had a bunch of like deals with brands and stuff like that because of the band. And I had been to NAM many times on the other side of NAM, but had never been to NAM as like a brand or anything. But I kind of knew what was all about NAM, and I was like, yo, Danny, let's grab the money that we have. We go all in, like, and this, like, back then we were literally like not really pocketing any money out of anything. We were just like grabbing every money that would come in and try to do other gigs to still survive, but then, kind of like put all the money into the brand and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we literally put all the money we had, which was maybe like $10,000. We put it all into doing an AM show, and we're like, let's build a booth. So we literally built the booth in my garage, like in my parking spot in my building garage, like, and we just literally built a fucking like whole structure of wood that looked pretty cool. And I was like sawing wood and doing all this shit in my garage spot, parking my car in the street so I could build like a NAM booth. And we piled everything into my garage, and we just drove that thing to NAM. And we're like, all right, we're gonna come in, nobody knows who we are, so we're like, we gotta make a big scene, like this thing. So that's when we came with the idea where, the whole B, like, I mean, the whole B thing came because of my nickname, and that's why the brand was called Beetronics. But the whole like turning them into a Comic Con was like that very first name. We're just like, dude, people have to see us, like, how do we do this? We're like, this thing has to look colorful, and everybody has, and we did. And our first name was very successful. Like, our first name was like, we had two pedals that we had on the website, which was the Walk the Hell and the Octahive. And then on our first name, we released the Overhive. And we had no dealers back then. We had one dealer like in Australia, like a very small shop. Uh, and we got a lot of dealers at our first name, like came out of NAM with whatever, like 20 dealers. And we're just like, wow, like we have a ton of pedals to build and all of that, that's where it kind of became a business officially, that was like, all
Mm-hmm.
right, we're actually doing this, like this thing worked. And back then, I mean, we had literally bet every dollar we had. So if NEM was a big failure, we would have to just start again with, but we were also not any afraid because we already didn't have any money anyway. So we're just like, all right, if we have to start again, that's fine. We can start again as many times as we need. So yeah, that's kind of how the brand got started. And then from then we kept just moving, and kind of after a while of doing that, I kind of realized, back then, whatever we have as custom shop nowadays was kind of our standard.
Mm-hmm.
Every pedal was like hand painted, hand sanded, and everything was done like that. As we kind of realized, okay, like this is not a way that we can really make as many as we need. We went adapting the line. So, so that's when I came up with the face plates, probably I think on the Fat B release, where I was like, oh, what if we had this face plate? And then I came up with which is something that I think a lot of people dig on the visuals of the pedals, but it was more like a solution to still look pretty custom, but be able to do it in a manner that works as far as a business. And yeah, and then kind of I think the royal jelly was probably the very first pedal of ours that got us a little bit uh, more attention. And
Mm-hmm.
that's also thanks to the pedal community as well, because that year it was the right next year that we released the Royal Jelly and the Buster there. And I remember like that year was very big for us because a lot of people started talking about us and a lot of people I looked up in the scene, I remember I came in one day, like maybe second day of NEM, and then Robert Keeley had made this huge post on Facebook about how like the jelly was the coolest thing he had seen at NEM and all of that. And then Andy from Reverb put on his list of like the best of them, whatever, and that got us attention as a brand, uh, and then kind of just went from there. Kind of
Mm-hmm.
I went getting crazier and building crazier stuff, and then the brand went growing as well. Eventually, I was able to hire some people who are much more talented than me into design and electronics, which has always been like a hobby kind of thing. I never went to college for none of that. I just kind of learned on forums plus YouTube, and then nowadays we have some people who are way more talented, like the other Filipe Pampuri, who works with me, who is like insane at it. And I went meeting people as well, people who would do our PCB layouts because I didn't know how to do no CAD drawings or nothing like that myself. So just kind of went figuring out and guiding this whole thing and connecting all the dots, always wanting it to be very artistic in every way possible because I've always been passionate about it. So I
If
think that's the bulk of the story. Next, that's here.
So I'm trying to like paint a timeline in my brain. So I'm trying to think if your first NAM was what I'm thinking it was, this would have been probably like 2017 or so. Is that
Well,
right?
yeah, I think the first name was 2016, I want to say.
16.
I
Okay.
first moved to US in 2009, not the first time, the second time when we did that first record of that band. So it's 2009. No, sorry. 2009 was the very first time. It was 2009, yeah.
Hmm.
2009, and then we did it for about 6 years, 7 years, the band thing throughout that period. And then when the band broke up was when I started the brand.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. 16 was my first NAM as well. And I was like going in like I don't know what's going on. I don't know, like I'd never met anybody. The guys from 60 Cycle Home were kind of like shepherding me through NAM and like showing me how it worked, and it was just like I just never thought I would ever be there. I'd never been to NAM in any capacity at all.
Yeah.
And so day one I'm hitting the floor, and Ryan's like, "Hey, you want to go interview Paul Reed Smith? We're gonna go interview Paul Reed Smith. You want to come with us?" I'm like,
Oh, that's it.
"Okay." I'm already like overwhelmed, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of a blur, but I remember like you guys showing up pretty strong and just being like, "Wow, what are these guys all about? What is going on? Look at these guys in their beekeeper outfits. Oh, now there's actual bees. Like, look at all this." So where
But
did? Oh,
sorry,
you're
just
good.
some delivery.
No worries. So you said the bee thing came from your nickname. What's the full story there?
Oh, the full story is very dumb and kind of hard to explain in a
Okay.
different language. Uh, I mean, in Brazil, sometimes people will call people a German when they don't look like a German at all. When like,
Okay.
and off my group of friends, I was probably like, more like dark skinned, and like people were like, "Yo, alemão," like, cause it's just like I don't know how to explain this in a different language. But in Brazil, there's some people will call others alemão for whatever reason. And one day, a friend started calling me alemão, and then from alemão, another friend started calling me abelhão, and then from abelhão, abelhão means big bee, and
Okay.
just because phonetic it sounds similar, alemão, abelhão, and that's like,
Yep.
and then it became abelha, which is bee, and then that became my nickname. There is really, literally, like no reason why, but it's just one of the things, friends, like teenagers,
Mm-hmm.
and I became a abelha, and that's kind of like and then when I made a few pedals, like Beetronics exactly came because I had made, I think it was like a phaser, like a metron. It's back there. It's up here. What was it? All right. So sorry for those who are just listening. I was grabbing the pedal. But yeah, I had made this thing at
Mm-hmm.
some point, which now became a port. But it was a Musitronics, and instead of writing Musitronics, I wrote Abeliatronics.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
Hella. Uh, and then the day I went to my friend Lierson to make a logo, we were gonna make a logo for Abeliatronics. And then when we got there, he was like, "Well, what do you want it to look like?" And I was like, "I want to look like Telefunken. It has to look like Neumann or Telefunken, those uh, like badges. That I
Mm-hmm.
already knew I wanted something that looked like a badge." And Abeliatronics not only didn't sound right for an American to say, but it would not fit, like. And then we were discussing, and we're like, "Oh, we could do a Beetronics, it would make more sense, and it would fit exactly like Telefunken does on their logo."
Mm-hmm.
And became Beetronics right there, and I was kind of like, "All right, let's go with Beetronics." So I started making the, like, back then was just a sticker, like a silver type of sticker, and that's when I came up with that sticker, which later I put on the Abeliatronics pedal. But uh, yeah, but that
Yeah.
was kind of the name thing.
I like it. I like it. It's funny how those things happen. Like I remember when I was first like doing mechanic work, the master mechanic I was working under, started just randomly calling me, like he'd be like, my name is Blake, and so he just randomly started calling me Blade one
Uh,
day. Which, I mean, I'm like 16, so I'm like, that's cool. That sounds cooler than Blake. Who wouldn't want to be called Blade instead, right? And go kill some vampires. But like then like it kind of grew into like that's what everybody in the shop called me. And it was like, but why? And then my parents would hear that and they'd be like, why are they calling you Blade? I'm like, oh, it's a long story. Like, I don't really know. It's
the
kind
day
of
I
weird.
call you off your nickname, the first time my mom called me Abela, I was like, "All right, that's it,
Mm-hmm.
that's it. Like, it's done."
Mm-hmm.
Like I cannot fight over my mom calling me my nickname. That's my nickname. That's gonna be my nickname. That's okay.
Is what it is. Yeah. Mine kind of faded out. Um, but like, I don't know. It's just weird how that happens. Like all my like friends I grew up with that I still, am around all the time, they all call me by my last name.
Yeah,
Like they don't call me my first name. Like Wyland, come over here. Like I
yeah.
don't know why.
So in Brazil, I was always Pampuri. like in
Yeah.
school, like I was always Pampuri by my last name, and that
Hmm.
has always been uh, like for whatever reason, school, however your teacher would call you. But
Yeah.
yeah, the beef thing was funny because we did, it happened to me, and it was never really intended or any even relation to bees for any reason,
Hmm.
But somehow when the brand started existing, I started here realizing how much sympathy people had for bees, and how many people are like very passionate about bees, and more and more we just embraced, the whole bee team. Also, I mean, all the bee puns are kind of endless. I
Hmm.
mean, we just released the product they'll call BeeBeeDee, which is like it's how could we miss that chance from being a pedal nerd
Exactly.
having a pedal that's called BBD for
Yeah.
Beetronics,
Yeah.
and just yeah, it's
Let's
just fun.
let's get into it. Here it is. We've got the BBD right here,
Yep.
and I've been having a blast with it. Like straight up, take all of the fun like octave stuff out of it. Just the
Yeah.
bass classic delay sound. I'm not just saying that because you're standing here. This is one of the best sounding straight up analog delays I've ever heard. It
Thank
just
you.
sounds
Hope it
just
is.
classic mode, straight up, like easy to use. Nothing too crazy. Sounds amazing. Like I just feel really inspired playing it in the normal mode, which was kind of surprising because I was most excited to try all the octave fun stuff and try to mess with different intervals, which I do, and it does a lot of really fun stuff. But I'm surprised how much time I'm spending just in regular mode playing like more mild stuff because I like to play kind of crazy, wild, weird, noisy things.
Yeah, I mean
But I'm finding like, wow, I'm putting this
obviously
clean
one
into
of the
this thing
things was
all the
like,
time now. It sounds so good.
uh, sorry, I cut you off there. If I had stopped, I don't know if I spoke on top of you. Yeah, but I was saying like this was probably one of my concerns at first. It was like, I wanted the BBD sound to just be a great sounding pedal, just a bucket
Hmm.
brigade style thing. At the same time, I mean, there was a few things about it that we knew we wanted to do with this pedal, and as much as like my my approach to creating pedals in general, and I think it stays somewhat clear throughout the history of our brand, is that I really don't make the pedals for like a market
Hmm.
intention. Like I never done it that way, and as it grew, and as I learned uh, with success and with mistakes and with failure as well, was that the best that I can do is just do stuff that I like, that I really
Yeah.
dig, and also with me and my brother and all my friends' background in music and recording, I've always been like, if me and my friends dig, there will be enough people who also dig, and I don't need to have 10 million people who want to buy this thing, like for the thing to exist. So I've always been happy with it. So with the BBD was not different. I was like, okay, like we gotta build something that I'm extremely happy with. One of the things was like, okay, Bucket Brigade sound has to be really cool.
Hmm.
It has to just sound pretty damn good, which I think we did. And I also wanted for it to be somewhat simple compared to our latest releases. Uh, I didn't want it to have any like back end like controls or like alternate controls or nothing like that. I wanted to be as what you see is what you get as possible, as much as possible. But then that did not help from me also wanting it to be very different. It had to be like the stuff that we do and have different approaches. And when it comes down to Bucket Brigade, my my view is like, and I might be wrong, people can point me to probably other cool stuff that there is, but it seems to me like it kind of stopped in time. And aside from maybe, from Chase Bliss, who had, the Tonal Recall and the Terme, who are two pedals that I really love. Uh, Aside from that, I never seen much innovation towards the BBD or even much of an approach that's any different than just the basics. It's like, all right, this has step tempo. All right, this has some modulation, and that's about it, you know. And it always remained very purist kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing, and never really into like, all right, how could this be different, you know? Uh, so that's something I knew I wanted to kind of like, okay, we gotta try to take this into 2025. You know, like I'm big into, you know, like people who are working in studio and producing, and people are more and more big into creative tools, you know, things that like inspire you to come up with a riff and all of that. And obviously any good sound and delay, it's inspiring. But then, you know, whenever you have things like the pitch shifting mode or the lo-fi, which are is quite different than the standard stuff, uh, it takes you to different places. So I was like, all right, it has to have those type of like skills in the pedal. And that's
Mm-hmm.
where all the expressive features came from, and where I knew we wanted to do the pitch shifting thing, because I've always loved the termi, and I had my things with the termi where I'm like, where this could be different and more my way that I would want to approach. And then there was also the tone control, which is quite unique on the pedal, which does the low pass and high pass. And that was also for me kind of a thing I really wanted to have, because I'm into reggae and dub, and the high pass, like for some reggae stuff, for some dub, it's super cool. Also great
Mm-hmm.
on bass. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I'm glad you like the regular sound of it. I feel like the one of the sounds that uh, as we were developing, so we were like, okay, the classic, we're gonna do the classic thing, but then it's gonna have, I guess, the biggest twist on the classic. There's a few things like that I think we were very able to achieve, which is like the pedal can take quite a punch as far as signal level without the repeats really distorting much, you know, without getting too insane. So, like, I just posted actually today a video of us playing a Jupiter 6, and the Jupiter was literally just straight up plugged into the pedal. And a lot of delay pedals won't be able to take that. And even though the pedal was not thought out as optimized for like, oh, line level, like we have for example on the CB, that you can go in and select the level and all of that. We didn't want to get that nerdy, we wanted more straight up like guitar pedal thing,
Mm-hmm.
but we made it so it actually works pretty good. I play it on the roads the whole time. And so that was, I think, one of the cool things about the classic. All right, it can take a punch. And then the tone control makes it very different. The tone control for me makes it makes like most pedals, or I think there's not any. I read somebody saying on a forum the other day saying some Supro delay has a high pass on it, but I haven't played. I haven't seen it. And maybe it does,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but I haven't seen any bucket brigades that have a high pass on the repeats. And I was like, why don't we do that? And obviously that brings more of the noises and stuff. And usually people are doing the opposite. People are running a pretty strong low pass, so you can extend as much as possible the delay time,
Mm-hmm.
and cut off the click. You know, because as you go expanding the delay time, the you know the more you're going to start hearing the clock. You know, on it. So the low pass is usually helping out for that. And I was like, all right, no, we should do both. We should have low pass and high pass. And that was the first thing that was kind of like, all right, this is going to be a very different thing from the classic. You know, if you put in a memory man next to it, you cannot do the sounds that you do on the BBD straight up just because of that, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
that was something that I was like, all right, that's some Beetronics approach to it already, you know, our touch. Uh, then we came up with a different way on how that tone control works. If I getting more nerd on the whole thing, which is like is a fixed low pass and a fixed high pass, that when they are blended, we found a sweet spot where it sounds somewhat flat. So when you're going like messing with the tone, you're kind of messing with the two levels. Uh, So we first focused, on the classic, and that has that cool tone. And then we knew the lo-fi, we wanted to do this irregular wave shape that we had been developing. I mean, with all that said, all the sound path it's analog for those who are listening and don't know yet, but all the
Mm-hmm.
sound path is analog. It's just that the digital controls were able to create this weird LFOs and all things. So we were already working on this shape of LFO for some other stuff as well. And we were like, oh, okay, so we do the lo-fi, like the tape-ish type of LFO that warbles and goes crazy in weird places. And much of the focus stayed on the pitch shifting for obvious reasons, because it's that I knew that this was something that was going to get people very excited and want to play it. And at the very end of it all, we were messing some with the lo-fi, and we were like, okay, like so that wave and works cool and stuff. And it came to me like one day, and I called Filipe. I was like, dude, we should apply the same LFO that we're doing, the same irregular LFO, at the same time to the tone level, since we are digitally controlling the high pass and low pass level, and we should do them with inverted polarity. So like as it gets deeper, the modulation of the delay time, it also spikes on like a peak of high pass, or the opposite way, and spikes on a low pass. And so as things pitch up and down, they also get brighter and darker, and all simultaneously and somewhat in sync.
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I was like, all right, let's try to run a code so we can hear that. And in my mind, I was like, this is gonna sound sick. And as we actually did it, we were just like both, wow, like this is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I think we created a mode which might be where most people will sit at.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I'm talking this before the pedal is fully out. So we're gonna find out that once a lot of people start using it. But for me, that's kind of like, so we have the classic, which is the more traditional player type of mode. We have the pitch shifting, which is almost the extreme of that for the really the explorer and the person who is into the more modern type of delay thinking. But then lo-fi sits right there in the middle, where it's very different. It almost sounds like a univibe is running on the repeats, but then it
Mm-hmm.
modulates in weird ways. uh, so I have a feeling a lot of people are going to love the mode that came up more by almost mistake, like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people are going to be sitting using that mode. So just to
Yeah.
give it a kind of a breakdown of at least mode wise, right?
Yeah. It's so much fun. So like I mentioned, I was playing in the classic a lot, but in the video that I'm working on, I actually kind of set it to like almost like what I describe as like a one man band setting. So
Yeah.
like I like have like the octave up and down, and I have it pretty like the mix fairly high, and I was playing this like big stupid fuzzy riff thing that like made it sound almost as if I had a bass player following me, but it wasn't tracking with it, right? Because it's a delay, obviously. So, the tap tempo and time, it sounds like the bass player is playing off of me. So it's like
uh,
I'll play a note and then he comes in on the offbeat, the
yeah.
imaginary bass player. I was like, this is a crazy trick. I don't think I've ever heard this be able to be done before. Like, this honestly makes it sound like I got a really messed up band behind me well, I'm just playing one guitar. It's
Yeah.
like this is so much fun. I was having a blast. I did like probably like 12 different tracks. Just like kept trying different things over. Like same exact setting, just playing different riffs over and over again. And I
Yeah.
was like there's no other pedal I've played that does it quite like this. Like it was really really fun.
That's for those who are not familiar on how like the pitch mode works, right? Or those who
Mhm.
have not heard the pedal or how delay pitch shifting works. We're actually doing like a square wave modulation on the delay time, and with the digital controls, we're able to go to exact different speeds. And that's the equivalent as if you were tweaking your delay time knob, like when you tweak it and it gets pitched up or pitched down, right? So you get the high. octave, and then you get the low, and the low is what does that bass almost pulsating thing, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it depends. I mean, throughout the pedal, you have also options which go to two notes, and that makes the triplet fitting into it. Uh, so yeah, it's one of those things. Also, there is the random mode. I don't know if you ended up messing a lot with the random stuff on the pitch shifting. I really like the random stuff. If you set the modulation, because the modulation is always in sync with the delay time, but if you set it to a very slow place, like at its minimum, uh, it kind of like just every now and then throws some of the phrasings that you're doing up, and sometimes goes up an octave, sometimes go up a
Mm-hmm.
fourth, or sometimes goes up a fifth, even a second. We don't really have like thirds and stuff, because thirds, uh, some nerdy stuff, but as you're going up and down, like if you're doing an octave, it's symmetric, going up and going down. uh, but if you're doing like a fifth up, when it bounces down, that generates a fourth down, and it keeps doing that same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do like minor thirds, you're basically, creating like, a whole diminished chord, which gets less uses and stuff like that. But with that said, it's a mode for you to listen
Mm-hmm.
more than play. That's for me kind of the approach. Like, it's like sometimes I see some people, they will grab it and they'll go play, and they just start playing something, and that mode is not like just start playing. It's like hit a note, listen to it for a second, and jump in. It's like you hit a note, the band starts playing, and then you come in with the band. Like, that's kind of the approach on how it is.
Yeah.
uh, and I feel you can create some really incredible stuff. There's like a lot that you can do with it, if you start messing between tempos, making like the feedback, lots of feedback, or just a single repeat. uh, Tone control, for instance, if you set it on high pass, you fully eliminate the low octaves that happen, or the low pitches that happen, and then you
Mm-hmm.
start getting a whole different vibe. If you go in on full low pass, you kind of eliminate the high ones, and it stays more, kind of uh, on the low thing. So it goes pretty far as far as the pitch shifting mode goes. Like, you can stay on it for days. But one thing I wanted to do is like to be pretty straightforward on the UI, like on the user interface. So I think we were able to achieve that in a way where it's kind of like, while you can stay there for like days, kind of tripping and setting different tempos, different pitches, and different subdivisions for the modulation to happen. uh, it is pretty straightforward to use. There's nothing hidden there, or nothing that you need to know in order to just start using. Every knob, it's what you see is what you get, and you just go with it. So
I
I'm
didn't
very,
even I didn't even read the manual. I just opened it up and looked at how nice it looked, and I
yeah.
went, "All right, I'm gonna play the pedal now. I'll read it when I get confused." And I never got confused.
All right,
So
I'm
yeah,
glad.
I felt
I
like I knew what was going on.
because the 40 page manual for the CB, it's, I know, I know not everybody wants to read a book before they.
hmm Wow, that this time really flew by. I can't believe we're already at the hour
Oh,
mark.
1 hour. All right, cool.
Yeah. And
That's
I really appreciated getting to know you and getting to know your story better. I really, really enjoyed all that. So thank you for your time. But I
Thank
do
you.
have two more classic questions I like to wrap this episode up with that I ask everybody. But before I do that, I like to give the guests a chance to take the stage. You're talking to a few thousand people right now. You can shout out anybody you want to shout out. You can plug anything you want to plug. The floor is yours.
All right, so uh, I would say, guys, check out the BBD. Like, it's I really think it's the best creation we have ever done, and I'm not a good salesman. I'll start by that, so I'm not trying to sell anything. I just hope you guys dig. I
hmm
truly hope like people make some cool stuff with it. Like, it's a really cool, inspiring pedal. Uh, and also, with all that said, at the end of the day, have fun playing music, and remember that even though we are big time gearheads, we Music is everything. So you can play music with no pedals or with pedals. It's fun with more pedals. but,
Yes.
uh, but the music, it's in yourself, not on the gear. And yeah, just have fun playing.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good reminder. We all do this from time to time. We get real obsessed with the gear. Obviously, you and I love our gear, but the reason we like the gear in the first place, the reason we ever thought that gear was ever cool, is because of what you can do with it. It's not,
Yeah,
it doesn't do any good just to sit there and look at it, right? Like you got
yeah,
to get in there and mess around. That's what makes it cool. You make the gear cool, not the other way around.
exactly, yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy and what you hear.
Yeah. All right. Final questions. Here we go. First one. What is your favorite boss pedal?
Oh, then let me think. Let me look at my stuff. What do I have? Some boss stuff. I never have many boss pedals. I'll tell you that much.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't know if it's back in Brazil. Most of my pedals were some Brazilian made stuff as well. Uh, Let me think. That's that kind of sounds insane, right? Because everybody
And
probably has a pretty quick question for their favorite boss pedal.
most people, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say is the Super Fuzz. I think's the name, right? The gray one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that thing a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm obviously
Or
into
the hyper fuzz is the hyper fuzz.
Hyper
Yeah.
Fuzz. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
Hyper
Yep.
Fuzz.
Yep.
Yeah, I think. I mean, being into fuzz, that's their fuzz. Like so.
Yes.
Yeah, I would probably say that one.
Mm-hmm. All right. Good pull. I like the hyper fuzz. I need to get one. Right? It's weird that I don't have one. It's kind of dumb, actually.
It
I gotta
is. It's
fix.
pretty sick. It's pretty sick. But and they recently redid it as well, right? Like they did like
Yeah, I
uh
think there's a
was a
Wazacraft
I
one.
think there was a
Yeah.
craft recently,
Yeah. Yeah.
a fancy one maybe. Yeah,
Yeah. All right. Final question. What is your favorite kind of pizza?
Brazilian pizza, São Paulo
Okay.
pizza.
What does that mean?
São Paulo pizza is insane, dude. It means you need to get on a plane and go to São Paulo right now and eat pizza. If you are really into pizza,
I
you
am.
should get on a plane and go to São Paulo and go eat like pizza everywhere you go. It's so. Do we have a few minutes, maybe 2 minutes?
Yeah. No, let's go.
Like
Let's go.
Brazilian pizza, it's quite different than American pizza, quite different than New York style, quite different than. Uh, and if I start describing, maybe some Americans will be like, "Oh," because like the whole New York thing with the crust and holding and all of that. São
Mm-hmm.
Paulo pizza is nothing like that because like it's heavy, it's big, it has a lot of stuff in it. I would say the highlight of Brazilian pizza is in this thing called catupiry, which I just had last night. Actually, catupiry. Catupiry is this type of cheese, which also, if I say that, that doesn't sound super right because it's not that. But the closest you guys have would be like cream cheese, is some type of like some creamy cheese.
Okay. Like a ricotta almost.
Not really. It's like the closest there is would be cream cheese,
Okay. Okay.
but it's like cream cheese improved a million times, like a
Okay.
billion
All
times.
right.
Like I don't know. People are obsessed about it in Brazil. For me, catupiry is almost like a religion. It's like it's a thing that for me, it's like anything that has catupiry, I'm buying and I'm eating.
I
Uh,
need to try this. I need it. I
and
need
then
it.
we make pizzas, like of, let's say, like some of my favorites. Like we have some Brazilian like sausage that they slice very thin,
Mm-hmm.
and with this cheese on top, like with this catupiry cheese on top, it's amazing. Like in Brazil, like a four cheese or like a four formaggi type of thing would be with catupiry always. Like, and catupiry is always the highlight. Uh, my son is very into pizza, and I've also grown into making pizza. So I bought like a pizza oven, and we make pizza at home. And one of my main things why I love to make pizza at home is because I can make pizza with catupiry, which is not easy to find and neither cheap to buy here in LA. Like, it's you got to go to some Brazilian markets and they charge like a fortune for it. But I'll go in and buy it just so I can have pizza with catupiry in America because it's incredible.
I have to try this. I
Yeah.
usually, when people are speaking about the different styles of pizza, I like have a frame of reference for it. I don't have a frame of reference for this. I must try this cheese. I got to
Yeah.
track it down. Surely there's somewhere in Portland that's got it somewhere. It's got to
And
be.
if I am to say, I mean, you can probably buy at some Brazilian market. You can buy catupiry. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't say you will find Brazilian pizza. Maybe some places sometimes they do. I haven't eaten a Brazilian pizza here in LA. There is a few places which are decent, but it's nothing like São Paulo. Because São Paulo's pizza scene is huge. Like it's big time. Like, and you gotta go there for you to sit at like a good pizzeria in Brazil, because the service is also on a whole other level. Like you sit there to be
Mm.
there, like this, like it's a full experience. But I would also mention a place. So since I live in LA, there is a place which is getting very very hyped. There's two places here which I love to eat, which is Pizzeria de Zano, which is like a Neapolitan pizza, like, but they have, it's a big warehouse where they have like four different like ovens, like in the back, like and it's just like some big ass tables and everybody just kind of sits together and you just order the pizza and they bring straight from the oven and throw it on top of the table, and it's really delicious. I love to go there with my kids. They can also make their own pizza and then they take it to the oven and it's pretty cool. uh, and there is this place which is getting a lot of hype here, which is called Pizzeria Sei,
Mm-hmm.
SEI, uh, which is they call it like a Tokyo style pizza.
Oh
We've
yeah.
only been to Tokyo, and it's a vibe. Like the pizza is really, really good. And Pizzeria Sei was better than the ones I had in Tokyo. And Pizzeria Sei is incredible in my opinion. It's like a place where I'll go and I'll be like, wow, like this place is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a chef named Sean Brock. He lives in Nashville, and he just opened a Tokyo style pizzeria there. And like Nashville is my home away from home,
Yeah.
so I'm like, next time I'm in Nashville, that's where I'm going for sure.
This one, if you are ever in LA, like it's not easy to go. Like if you show up early when they open, it's easier for you to kind of get a table. And I don't know about reservations because when I've been, I just showed up early and sat.
Mm-hmm.
But it is amazing, in my opinion. Like one of the best pizzas I ever had outside of São Paulo.
All right, man, this is some knowledge bombs. I'm glad I asked that question. Yeah, I
Big
have
and
so
cheap.
much googling to do after this episode. All right,
Let's
well, we'll slide over to Patreon and see what kind of shenanigans we can get into over there if that works for you.
let's do it.
All right. Okay, everybody. For Felipe, this is Blake. And as always, folks, good luck and good tones.